But yeah, we are closing, bringing this series, exploring the 5 precepts, to a closure tonight, and in a way also closing 2020. Though we still have another evening next week. It's a special one with my leading a special puja for the winter solstice. But yeah, tonight we're just rounding things up, and I wanted to bring a bit of a few reflections around the 5th precept, because in a way, though the 5th precept is very clearly a mind precept. In a way, when we think of the 5th precept, the 5th precept really sustains the practice of the other 4. Yeah. I really like the way Bhante Sangha talks about the first 4 precepts in terms of principles. Yeah, so we have been exploring those in the last 5 weeks. So the first precept, Bhante refers to it as a principle of non-violence. The second precept as a principle of non-appropriation. And the third precept, this is a bit of a challenging notion, but he talks in terms of chastity for the third precept. And that's chastity of body, speech, and mind. Yeah. So something interesting there to reflect on. And then the fourth precept is the principle of truthfulness. And I believe you were exploring more in depth last week with Kimasiri. In a way, all of those, or our behavior, our ethical practice, is sustained by the way we see the world, the way we understand the world. Yeah. So the area of mindfulness and awareness, when we recite the 5th precept and we say, with mindfulness clear and ready, I purify my mind, that's just an aspect of what we're dealing with in this area, in this realm. Yeah. The negative form of the precept is abstaining from taking intoxicants. Yeah. And that suggests a few other things. So we try not to make our energy turbid. Yeah. So we're trying not to add substances, in this case with intoxicants, that might distort our view of life. And intoxicants, as I said, substances are traditionally the intoxicants that we refer to with the 5th precept. So the first thing that comes to mind might be alcohol, for example. Though there are obviously much more stronger substances that one can use, but also they are much more subtle intoxicants. Yeah. And this is something that we have explored before here in the context of Sangha night. So it might be a very well-established, well-accepted socially intoxicant like caffeine, yeah, or much more subtle intoxicants that have to do with the mind, yeah. So those things that help us, like the caffeine, to keep going, yeah. They help us to sustain a particular way of acting in the world, a particular behavior. Yeah. And everybody has something. Yeah. Another reflection that Bhante at some point shared with us is that we live in the age of anxiety. Yeah. So our emotional beings are quite prone to feel the angst of existential vacuum, the need to feel certain needs, but it's not very clear how to do that many times. Yeah. But the reflection that I wanted to bring to this is just looking a bit more deeply into the Buddhist tradition. There's a very close relationship between views and ethics. So there's an important sutta, the Brahmayala Sutta from the Digha Nikaya, where the Buddha explores 62 different wrong views. Yeah. So in Buddhism, sometimes we talk in those terms. We talk about wrong views and right view. Yeah. But the interesting thing about the Brahmayala Sutta is that the first part of the Brahmayala Sutta is about ethics, it's about the precepts. And then the Buddha goes on to elaborate about views. So there's a very close relationship between the two. And indeed, I mean, it's probably very obvious when you think about it. You know, the way we believe our life should be, the way the shape that we try to get to achieve for our lives is going to drive our actions. Yeah? It's going to be the way that we express our energy in the world. The interesting thing about these 62 wrong views, I was looking more in detail about that. 18 of those 62 wrong views have to do with the past and present, and 44 are about the future. Yeah. So there's a lot. It's a lot of looking ahead. It's a lot of anxiety again in terms of what's coming, what's going to happen. And many different ideas of how to explain our situation, how to give meaning to our situation, our human situation. So, I mean, most of you have had some level of practice behind you. There's some level of experience applying the Buddhist teachings behind you. So you probably know by now, with a certain level of effectiveness, you know a bit yourself, you know a bit your mind, how it works. Yeah. So I'm going to try to keep this short so we can have a few exercises tonight. But I just want to share with you, first of all, share with you a very interesting diagram. So bear with me, I haven't opened this yet. Go back. Now. It's going to take a bit longer. Bear with me, it's worth the wait. Okay. Great. Okay. So I was talking a moment ago about distortions, and I want to show you this image, which I found very revealing. Okay. Wait. Yeah. Okay. Give me a shout if you cannot see what is on the screen right now. So this is a codex or a compilation of cognitive biases. Yeah. And they are, it's a very extensive, very detailed. Each of these lines is a kind of bias that has been identified. So again, And this is just at the level of our rational mind, yeah, the way we interpret information. So as I said before, the Buddha himself named 62 different wrong views. Yeah? And you can think of biases as basically that they are just wrong views. Yeah? So these are the wrong views. The people that study that, are associated with the way we think, the way we interpret, process information. Uh, um, and I think that's fascinating. I mean, the most I look into this area of the biases, the most information. Here you have 180 something biases listed. Yeah. When I was looking into this as preparation for this evening, I found many different people that work with, with our brains, neuroscientists, people that process information. They were talking about the different main biases that they can identify. Yeah. And if you go down that road, very interesting information. I mean, we could organize a whole weekend just on looking at biases, and I'm sure we'll be just scratching the surface there. But what is more important is that this is not new. Yeah? The Buddha himself was talking about this 2.5 millennia ago. And the Buddha has told us already how reality looks and how we misrepresent reality. Yeah? So you probably have heard of the lakshanas. We have talked about this before. So there are 4 main qualities or characteristics that reality has, and that's accessible for us when we are, even at a very very basic glimpse level of insight. Yeah. So just to remind you, we talk about insatisfactoriness or dukkha, sometimes translated as suffering. We talk of impermanence or anicca. We talk about insubstantiality or anatman. And we talk of what can be translated as ugliness, which really means something like lack of real transcendental beauty. And with this, the name in Sanskrit is Ashubha. And those are qualities that are available to us. Probably the 2 that are more immediate to our experience are those of dukkha and anicca, so insatisfactoriness and impermanence. And it's something that is tangible in our experience. There is something in our experience that is probably very close to a certain degree of suffering. Yeah. Something that doesn't quite fit. Yeah. Something that is missing. We are missing something. We probably don't feel completely happy all the time. Yeah. Very likely. We are not there. There's something that we are always longing for. And also we can notice change, yeah, in our experience. And change is also as well very powerful thing. So at the beginning of the evening tonight, we were reciting those beautiful verses of the 4 reminders. The 4 reminders are another very beautiful set of images that can be very useful as well to our practice. So in preparing for this, I found this collage that I want to show you, and very briefly look at the 4 reminders before we do our first exercise of the evening. So, yeah. Okay. So I like this there's a sort of Tibetan style alphabet in which they appear. So we have the 4 reminders here. The first one is the precious human life, or the precious human birth. The second one is impermanence, so it's one of the lakshanas. And the third one is the law of karma. And the fourth is the falls of samsara. So the reminders, they are very, very well named. They are things that we need to reflect on over and over again. Yeah. So the reminders, in a way, are right views. Yeah. So it's the right way of looking at our condition and our situation as human beings. Yeah. It's very easy sometimes just to lose sight of them. It's very easy sometimes to lose sight of this precious opportunity that we have as human beings. It's throughout the whole Buddhist tradition, there is a great importance that is placed into us having a human rebirth, a human form, yeah, because of the opportunity towards enlightenment that it represents. Yeah? In a traditional way, sometimes it says that this is the working basis, which is superior to a wish-granting gem, difficult to acquire and easily lost. It passes in a flash like lightning in the sky. The second one, impermanence, as well, is one of, as I mentioned before, is one of the lakshanas. Yeah? And it's something that we can, if we are awake enough, we can notice. And the third one, karma, is very interesting because you don't need to believe in rebirth, yeah, to be able to notice the effect of your actions. Yeah? So karma basically says that actions have consequences. Yeah? So whatever we do in our life, either bodily or in terms of the speech or the mind, that is going to have a fruit sooner or later and at some point. Yeah? And then the last one is an interesting one because we tend to forget this one very easily. Yeah, this is the one I suppose we tend to forget more easily than the others. Because we try to make samsara work for us. We try to fix samsara in our experience. And that can be a whole life project and a whole way of wasting this precious opportunity that we have. Yeah. So let me stop this and then. But then coming back to wrong views, wrong views are not just intellectual. Yeah. So that codex that I just showed you is not just about the brain, how the brain works. Wrong views are sustained by emotions. Yeah. And it's very important at this point, this is the first exercise of the evening, that we take just a moment to think about what kind of wrong views we are more, we have more of a propensity towards. So the Buddha said basically that there are two main wrong views. Yeah. And also the Buddha said that one is better than the other. Yeah. And that's very interesting. So the Buddha is talking about nihilism and eternalism. And you probably know very well that the Buddha talks of the middle way. So the path that the Buddha teaches is a middle way that transcends those two extremes. Yeah. And when I say emotion, that's very important to recognize that. So nihilism is sustained mostly by hatred in our experience. Yeah? But a denial or even a craving. There's another way of the Buddha putting this: a craving towards non-existence. Yeah? It's a craving towards something, but it's not craving for life. It's craving for death in a way. Yeah? Non-existence. And eternalism, on the other side, is sustained by another kind of emotion, which is a bit more difficult to recognize. Yeah? It's ignorance. It's a spiritual ignorance. Nevertheless, the Buddha says that eternalism is a bit better than nihilism, because at least in eternalism, you have some sort of a notion of your actions having a consequence. Um, so let's take a pause here at this point. Um, I don't know if you need more information, but I think this is something that probably is not new for many of you. But it would be just from the initial reflection that all these words that I'm saying, generate in you. What kind of views are you more propense to sustain in your life? Are you you move more towards nihilism or more towards eternalism? So if you need to think about that, let's just take a couple of minutes. You don't need to share this with anybody. This is just a personal reflection. And it may be that you have a bit of both. So if you have a bit of both, you can start noting down which are the ones that are more towards nihilism and which are the ones that are more towards eternalism. Sure. Okay, so let's move on a bit. So it's very important that we recognize what kind of emotions are we more we tend to indulge more into. Yeah. So, and when I say emotions, I mean basically negative emotions. Yeah. Negative emotions are the ones that sustain wrong views. And then from there, you can start identifying what kind of intoxicants you are more likely to get. And again, the list of intoxicants can be limitless. Yeah? It's so many things that we can transform into an intoxicant. You know? Content, for example, nowadays could be an intoxicant. I think the best way of describing an intoxicant is something that is an external element that we bring into our experience and help us to sustain these strong beliefs that we have and that are different to those qualities that I just described, that the Buddha says that reality has. Yeah? So the things that distract us from suffering, for example, the things that help us to believe that we can get whole control of things. That beautiful poem that Kusala Devi read, we are always chasing that opportunity of controlling life. Yeah. And we are always defeated in that intention. Yeah. Because basically life is king, as Bhante Sangha says. Nevertheless, there are three main intoxicants, again, just going back to the Buddha, there are three main intoxicants that the Buddha identified in his quest. So the Buddha talked about youth as an intoxicant. Okay? And and realizing that the vanity around being young disappear. Yeah. The second intoxicant for the Buddha was health. Yeah. And also the vanity around being healthy disappear. And the third intoxicant for the Buddha was life itself. Yeah. It might sound a bit like a contradiction here with what we were describing a moment ago about the craving for non-existence. But the Buddha is not saying that the enjoying life is wrong in itself. What he's saying is that us thinking that what we have is just life, denying the possibility of death, is a way of perpetuating a spiritual ignorance. The desire to live forever, the desire not to grow old, for example. Yeah. So it's very interesting for me to start thinking about it. It brings something to my experience around that area of the intoxicant. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's not so much about us not looking after ourselves. That's very important, that we are healthy in a way that help us, sustains us, our efforts to grow and develop, yeah, to realize certain level of awakening. Yeah. It's more, this is an expression that I'm not very sure about. It's English, it's my second language, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's a self-cherishing tendency. Yeah. So it's not about self-metta, it's not about self-care. Yeah. This is more about being a bit too precious about our individual experience, being a bit too protective, in a way a bit selfish, about our experience. Yeah. We really don't care about others. Where we are constantly concerned is about our own exclusive well-being. Yeah. So all of our efforts can become a bit too self-referential. Yeah. It's just about us constantly. If somebody is doing well, what we do before feeling well for them, before feeling joy, experiencing joy for them, what we do is that we compare with them, and we think what is missing in my experience. Yeah. Why I don't have that the person has, or that the person has achieved. Yeah. So it's good. It's good. I mean, this is a very frank, honest exploration. Yeah, I'm not going to ask you to share this with anybody, but if you are noticing any responses to what I'm saying, just note that down. Yeah, just be frank with yourself, very honest with yourself tonight. And what we try to do in life, with these intoxicants, is we are trying to always avoid the things that we dislike. Yeah. So you probably have heard of the worldly winds. There's a list of 4 pairs of things, that our experience, either if we are spiritually immature, as Bhante Sankarajita put it, or if we are wise, we are always faced to these pairs of possibilities in our experience. So it's called the worldly winds, and I'm just going to read it very, very briefly. So gain and loss, status and disgrace, censor and praise, and pleasure and pain. So it's always, we try to avoid one side of that spectrum, and we are always chasing for the other. I realized something that Bhante Sankarajita used to say, that whenever he was, the way that he trained himself to deal with the worldly winds, was that whenever he was praised, he reminded himself that the next time he will be criticized. And whenever he was criticized, he reminded himself that the next time he will be praised. Yeah? He will be receiving some praise. So it's very important. And as I say, it doesn't matter if we are enlightened or not. We are going to be still in between these 2 pairs of things. Yeah? The Buddha himself, experienced those worldly winds, but the way that an enlightened being responds to the worldly winds is very different to the way that we do. So there is a reflection there. There is there is a way of leaving behind our traditional tendencies to chase what we like and to push away what we dislike. There is another sutta, a sutta that deals with these worldly winds, called the Lokavipati Suta. This is all recording, so you can just check this later on if you want the references. So, but I'm just going to read just a few verses from at the end of this sutta. So how an enlightened being responds to the worldly winds. Knowing this, the wise person, mindful, ponders these changing conditions. Desirable things don't charm the mind. Undesirable ones bring no resistance. They are welcoming and rebelling are scattered, gone to their end, do not exist. Knowing the dustless, sorrowless states, they discern rightly. Their discerns rightly has gone beyond becoming to the further shore. So in a way, what we are, and I'm sure most of you know this already, we are encouraged by the Buddha just to practice equanimity. What we do in the last stage of the Metabhavana is to bring that sense of equanimity. Yeah. So we become more emotionally resilient. That's a concept that we use a lot in our introductory courses. We become more robust, emotionally robust. So we are not so easily bring down by the worldly winds. I want to read something to you before we do the main reflection of the evening, which is a letter actually, and I wanted the tone of this evening to be a bit like preparing yourself for the New Year resolutions that I believe some of you might be doing in a couple of weeks. Yeah. So, and this letter is called Advice from Me to Myself, from Patru Rinpoche. Vajrasattva, soul deity, master, you sit on a full moon lotus cushion of white light in the 100-petal full bloom of youth. Think of me, Vajrasattva, you who remain unmoved within the manifest display. That is Mahamudra, pure bliss, emptiness. Listen up, all bad karma patru, you dweller in distraction. So patru is the person who writes the letter and the person who is receiving the letter at the same time. For ages now, you've been beguiled, entranced, and fooled by appearances. Are you aware of that? Are you? Right this very instant, when you are under the spell of mistaken perception, you got to watch out. Don't let yourself get carried away by this fake and empty life. Your mind is spinning around about carrying out a lot of useless projects. It's a waste. Give it up. Thinking about the 100 plans you want to accomplish with never enough time to finish them just weighs down your mind. You are completely distracted by all these projects, which never come to an end, but keep spreading out more like ripples in water. Don't be a fool. For once, just sit tight. Listening to teachings, you've already heard hundreds of teachings, but when you haven't grasped of them, what's the point of more listening? Reflecting on the teachings, even though you have listened, if the teachings aren't coming to mind when needed, what's the point of more reflection? None. Meditating according to the teachings. If your meditation practice still isn't curing the obscuring states of mind, forget about it. Giving high-sounding lectures doesn't do your mind stream any good. The path of analytical reasoning is precise and acute, but it's just more delusion. Good for nothing, God shit. The oral instructions are very profound, but not if this endless round of conversation are just attachment and aversion. It's just more God shit, good for nothing at all. At the time, it seems marvelously entertaining, but really, you are just spreading around stories about other people's mistakes. Your audience seems to be listening politely, but then they grow embarrassed for you. Useless talk that just make you thirsty. Forget about it. Reading over and over those Dharma texts that just occupy your mind and make your eyes sore. Forget about it. When you don't have a test, you long for it. Then, when you finally got it, you hardly look at it. The number of pages seems few enough, but it's a bit hard to find time to copy them all. Even if you copied down all the Dharma texts on earth, you wouldn't be satisfied. Patro, oh boy, that's not for you. In the triple O universe, when you are lower than your company, you should take the low seat. Should you happen to be the superior one, don't get arrogant. There is no absolute need to have close friends. You are better off just keeping to yourself. When you are without any worldly or religious obligations, don't keep on logging to acquire some. If you let go of everything, 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 that's the real point. This advice was written by the practitioner Patro Rinpoche to his intimate friend Patro Rinpoche in order to give advice that is tailored exactly to his capacities. This advice should be put into practice. Even though you don't know how to practice, just let go of everything. That's what I really want to say. Even though you aren't able to succeed in your Dharma practice, don't get angry. So I think that's what I wanted to say tonight. Really. So a good reminder, a good reminder that we probably know enough already. We don't need to learn anything new. And maybe what we need to do is to apply what we know. So what I want you to, I want to ask you now, we're going to spend a few minutes before the end of the evening, just looking at a very traditional teaching, which is that of the 4 right efforts. It's one of the teachings that appear in the Noble Eightfold Path. And again, the Noble, like the worldly winds, there are 2 versions of the Noble Eightfold Path. There is a Noble Eightfold Path for unenlightened beings and a Noble Eightfold Path for the Aryan beings or the enlightened beings. And this is exactly the same. It's just the way we practice it, what makes a difference. So I'm going just to remind you, what are those? The 4 right efforts are to prevent unskillful states that haven't arisen yet in our experience, to eradicate those unskillful skillful states that are there, the things that are keeping us, preventing us from growing and developing, to develop skillful states, to develop qualities that are going to help us to progress in the path, and to maintain those. The ones that we have already and the ones that we are aiming to develop as well. So let's take around 18 minutes to look at each of these in turn. Yeah? So I'm going to give you about 4 to 5 minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock. And just write down, think almost like, this is your chance to start working on your New Year resolution list. So first of all, think of those things, those tendencies, those unskillful states that you want to prevent from arising. And the reference frame for this is the 5 precepts. Yeah? So you can look at the 5 precepts if you want. Go precept by precept. We have been looking at the 5 precepts in the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks tonight. So just look at them. What are the things that you don't want to indulge, that you want to prevent? And then I'm going to ring a bell at the beginning and a bell at the end. So we have around 3-4 minutes for this one. Okay, 1 more minute left. Now a few minutes to think of eradicating unskillful states, unskillful habits or tendencies. One more minute left. So now we look into what are those skillful tendencies or positive habits that we want to cultivate, that we want to develop. And if it helps, you can probably remember the positive version of the 5 precepts. So I'm just going to get it on the screen for you. One more minute left. And finally, a few minutes just to write down what are those positive, skillful states or tendencies, habits that you want to maintain, you want to sustain. And again, I leave the precepts on the screen for you to use as a reference. One minute left. Good. So just to finalize this part of the evening, the important thing with this reflection is that we train ourselves into making intelligent effort. Yeah? So we understand better our capacities. We understand better, yeah, our strengths and our weaknesses, and we use our energy more intelligently. Yeah? So it's not about feeling guilty or feeling shame, for any of our habits. It's just more refining our energies more and more. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope that was useful. So we are going to move now into the last bit of the evening. I'm going to hand over to Zach.
Thank you, Arjun. Yeah, very thought-provocative stuff going there, particularly with that reading. Yeah, so I just want to draw some attention to some upcoming events that we've got coming up over the December month. So the closest one is next Wednesday. We've got a Solstice Puja hosted by Bodhinaya on the 23rd. So that'll be next Wednesday. It won't be a Sangha night, but we will be engaging in a special puja, and there'll be more information coming out about that, hopefully on Monday through your emails. But we also obviously got this, the center is putting on this period of practice over the Christmas period around the theme of from darkness to light. And I think this is a really relevant theme for these winter months, as we've got these short days and everything's beginning to wind down. Everything's a bit darker outside and a bit gloomy. And the body really wants to sort of slow down at this time of year. And really, it's quite natural in a way for us to sort of enter a more reflective and to do more meditation, for example, around this time of year, and to generally slow down. And so the center is offering flashes of light, if you will, flashes of inspiration and connection during that time throughout this month. So from, if I just get my dates correct, yeah, so we won't have any, so the 23rd we have the Solstice Puja, and then there's nothing on, and then we've got Christmas. Oh yeah, so everything starts on Christmas Eve on the 24th. There'll be no event on Christmas and Boxing Day. But as some of you may be aware, Padma Vajra, a very senior order member within our movement, has been giving these series of talks on the life and liberation of Padmasambhava, the short 15-minute talks. And every day over this December period, there's going to be a chance to come together between 10 and 12 for a meditation and to watch one of these selected short talks that have been going on, and a chance to discuss everything and connect and practice together throughout that time. So that won't be on Christmas Day and Boxing Day, but right up until the 31st, where we'll have the center's usual big New Year's Eve puja, which is going to be on the theme of Padmasambhava. So yeah, a real high energy practice or stuff to get you through some of this darker month, these darker winter months. So I think that's everything I have to say. I'll just double check I've not forgotten anything. Yeah, so I'll hand on to Kusala Devi, and she's going to share with us some more things that are coming up. So
thanks, Zach. Yeah, so Padmasaki and I will send something out, more details about that Christmas period in the next day or two. And what I'll include in there is also that the Buddhist Center online are running a series called A Christmas Carol. So it's basically readings of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And that will be starting on the 19th, which is this Saturday, and running through until the 26th. So there'll be a week. And it's at 5:30 every evening. The first evening, this Saturday, the 19th, is actually going to start with Ratnagosha, who's the president of our centre here. So many of you will know Ratnagosha. And he's going to give a talk about Scrooge. So I think that'll be really wonderful and one not to miss. And then there'll be this series of readings from the Christmas Carol, and it'll culminate with a sort of Boxing Day special feast where you're invited to take a feast along with you. It sounds really wonderful, and I'll send the details in the email, but I particularly wanted to highlight that partly because Ratnagosha will be doing that talk on Saturday, and I think it'll be one not to miss. So we'll make sure that we get the details sent out to you before then. Thanks, Zach.
Great. So there was Chemist Siri wanted to make an announcement as well, didn't she?
Saturday coming, we have the Women's Day retreat. I'll be brief about it. I know quite a few of you here are coming, but if you haven't and you are interested, you can book via the website or the email. An email will send out as well. So it starts at 10, finishes at 5. So in time for Ratnagosha's talk. We don't have to miss that. It's going to be, the theme is beauty, and it's a way to connect with the other women in our Sangha more deeply. Lots of order members are there, mitras, and some of you are quite new as well. I know quite a few have booked, so lovely. There will be quite a 1.5 hour lunch break in the middle, so there will be tea breaks. So it's not yeah, there will be breaks. So on beauty, do come. Back to Zach.
I have nothing else to say. Great.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, again. Just to say as well that another announcement, last minute, Parnasaki and me will be leading a puja, special puja for New Year's Eve. So something that is a very well-established tradition here at the Nottingham Buddhist Center. So you are also very welcome to join us on that occasion, and that will be included in the email that Kusala Devi just mentioned. So that's everything for tonight. Thank you very much again, everybody, for coming. And we'll resume our normal Sangha nights on the 6th of January. We'll come back to our normal program then. Okay.